In the distant past of the Roman Empire, when its power seemed unshakable, Maximian, one of its pillars, shared the imperial burden with his co-ruler and loyal comrade Diocletian. Granted the high title of Augustus and placed in charge of the western territories, Maximian undertook a truly titanic task. He was to play a pivotal, even decisive, role in stabilizing and defending the colossal empire from countless internal and external threats, including chaotic rebellions and separatist movements within the country, as well as the relentless onslaughts of barbarian hordes from its borders. His era was marked by a series of brilliant military campaigns that not only brought victories but also led to an unprecedented consolidation of imperial power. These efforts became the cornerstone for broader and more ambitious reforms, embodied in the grand system of the Tetrarchy, established by Diocletian. This revolutionary model of governance was designed not merely to increase the efficiency of the administrative apparatus but also to ensure unprecedented stability in an empire torn by decades of crises. How did a man of such humble origins manage to rise to such heights and become one of the architects of a new era? Surprisingly little information survives about Maximian's early life, prior to his elevation to the rank of Caesar in 285 AD. His past is shrouded in mystery, which only underscores the dramatic nature of his life's journey. It is only reliably known that he, like his close associate, the future Emperor Diocles, better known to the world as Diocletian, was born in the rugged lands of Illyricum. Maximian likely originated from the northeastern regions of this province, watered by the mighty Danube, possibly from the vicinity of the ancient and strategically important city of Sirmium. Unfortunately, there is a complete lack of information about his parents, except that they apparently led the humble lives of ordinary shepherds. Maximian's birth year also remains unknown, adding to the enigma of his biography. However, at the time of his appointment as Caesar, the historian Lactantius characterized him as an adolescens, a term traditionally applied to a young man between 18 and 30 years old. Thus, based on this meager data, it can be assumed that he was likely born around 250 AD. And so, this man, whose childhood was shrouded in obscurity and whose origins were so unassuming, one day took on the immense burden of saving the greatest empire. Maximian joined the Roman army and, according to Lactantius, rapidly ascended through the ranks, earning a significant reputation. This astonishing ascent is clearly evident in Lactantius's works, where he characterizes Maximian as a semi-barbarian, emphasizing his unusually swift transition from a humble shepherd's life in the wild lands of Illyricum to the position of one of the empire's supreme rulers. Apparently, he was an uneducated man, preferring decisive action to deep contemplation. The 4th century historian Aurelius Victor described Maximian as a reliable colleague in friendship, though somewhat rough, but possessing great military talents, which speaks to his strengths as a military commander. His military career likely intersected with Diocletian's as early as the reigns of emperors Aurelian and Probus. It is speculated that he may have participated in Carus's Mesopotamian campaign in 283 and was present at Diocletian's election as emperor on November 20, 284, in Nicomedia. After Carinus's defeat, Maximian was promptly appointed Caesar and heir to the throne by Diocletian in Mediolanum, Milan, in July 285. This circumstance likely indicates that these two prominent figures were long-standing allies, whose roles in the future power structure had been prearranged. It is quite probable that Maximian supported Diocletian in his campaign against Carinus, although no direct evidence confirming this assumption has yet been found. Maximian, having received the title of Caesar, was entrusted with a significant mission. He was sent to Gaul to secure the Rhine frontier, which was constantly under pressure from Germanic tribes, and to suppress the so-called Bagaudae revolt. Very little reliable information survives about the Bagaudae movement and their rebellion. The 4th century historian Eutropius described them as rural inhabitants led by Amandus and Aelian, while another ancient author, Aurelius Victor, referred to them simply as bandits. Some modern researchers suggest that the Bagaudae were not exclusively peasants seeking Gallic political autonomy but could also have been rebellious soldiers expressing discontent over the overthrow of Carinus, who, incidentally, was a native of Gallia Narbonensis. In such a case, they would have constituted deserted imperial troops, rather than mere brigands, albeit poorly equipped, insufficiently trained, and lacking proper leadership, and thus incapable of resisting the might of the Roman legions. Emperor Diocletian, without a doubt, perceived the Bugatti revolt as a serious enough threat to send a Caesar to quell it. Details of Maximian's campaign remain scarce, but his actions were evidently successful. This is confirmed by the fact that the very next year, Diocletian elevated him to the rank of Augustus of the entire West, entrusting him with the governance of vast territories including Italy, Latin North Africa, Spain, Gaul, and Britannia. Theoretically, the Roman Empire was not divided into two parts, and dual rule did not signify the emergence of two independent state entities. The territories transferred to Maximian's administration did not gain sovereignty from the unified Roman Empire, and thus, there were not two separate Roman empires. Imperial propaganda tirelessly emphasized the unity and indivisibility of Rome. Despite the practical division that occurred, each emperor possessed his own court, army, and official residences. These aspects were dictated solely by practical considerations, not by a change in the fundamental nature of imperial authority. Shortly after Maximian's ascension to the throne as Augustus, Diocletian, likely on July 21, 287, proclaimed himself and his co-emperor, Maximian, as Jupiter and Hercules, respectively. This unprecedented nomenclature unequivocally indicated that both emperors considered Jupiter and Hercules their divine ancestors, from whom they derived their imperial authority. Furthermore, this designation clearly demonstrated the hierarchical relationship between the rulers. Maximian evidently held a subordinate position to Diocletian. Just as Hercules is Jupiter's divine assistant and son, so too was Maximian's task to assist Diocletian in governing the vast empire. During the suppression of the Bugatti revolt in Gaul, the Germanic tribes of the Burgundians and Alemanni took advantage of the situation, crossed the Rhine, and invaded Roman territory, forcing Maximian to react swiftly and decisively repel the invaders. One barbarian army was left to perish from disease and starvation, while Maximian successfully intercepted and routed the second. After this, he established a new headquarters on the Rhine, preparing for upcoming military campaigns. This strategic location was chosen either in Mainz, Trier, or Colonia Agrippina, now known as modern Cologne. Once much of Gaul and the Rhine frontier were successfully pacified, another serious problem arose for the empire. The English Channel was still plagued by destructive piratical raids by Franks and Saxons. To combat this threat, Maximian appointed Carausius as commander of the fleet in the English Channel, tasked with clearing the strait of sea raiders. Carausius operated very successfully, and by the end of 285, he was capturing pirate vessels in significant numbers. However, alarming reports soon reached Maximian that Carausius was deliberately waiting for pirates to complete their plundering before attacking, and then appropriating all captured booty for himself, instead of returning it to the affected populace or handing it over to the imperial treasury. Upon learning of such treachery, Maximian immediately ordered Carausius's arrest and execution, which prompted the latter to flee to Britannia to save his life. Carausius enjoyed significant support among the population of Britannia, evidenced by at least 2 British legions defecting to his side. Immediately thereafter, Carausius took steps to neutralize the few loyalists remaining in his military formations and solemnly declared himself Augustus. In this situation, Maximian found himself in a predicament, unable to effectively counter Carausius due to the lack of his own fleet, which, ironically, he had previously entrusted to Carausius himself. Consequently, Maximian was forced to shift his attention to strengthening the empire's borders, focusing on the tribes inhabiting the territories along the Rhine. Maximian was particularly concerned by the Burgundian and Alemannic tribes residing in the Moselbosch region, whom he regarded as the most significant threat, and thus his first strike was directed against them. His military campaign was characterized by a brutal scorched earth tactic. Enemy lands were systematically devastated, and the tribal populations were reduced not only by direct engagements but also by starvation and the spread of diseases caused by the destruction. Having concluded operations against the Burgundians and Alemanni, Maximian turned his attention to less powerful tribes in the same region, skillfully trapping them and completely routing them in one decisive battle. The emperor himself participated directly in the battle, personally riding through the battle lines, inspiring his troops until the Germanic formations finally lost their fighting capability. Roman legions relentlessly pursued the retreating tribal armies, inflicting crushing defeats, which allowed the Rhine frontiers to be securely fortified by the end of 287. The following year, Diocletian returned from the east, and the two powerful rulers met, although the exact location and date of their meeting remain undetermined by historians. Later in the same year, 288, Maximian and Diocletian jointly initiated an unexpected invasion of the Agri-Decumates, a region situated between the Upper Rhine and the Upper Danube, penetrating deep into the ancestral territories of the Alemanni. While Diocletian carried out his invasion into Germania via Rhaetia, both emperors, advancing, systematically destroyed crops and food supplies, thereby depriving the Germanic tribes of their means of subsistence. As a result of these campaigns, significant territories were annexed to the Roman Empire, which, in turn, allowed Maximian to continue strengthening his military forces unhindered. In early spring 288, Emperor Maximian made a strategic decision, entrusting his loyal Praetorian prefect Constantius Chlorus, who was also the emperor's son-in-law, being the husband of his daughter Theodora, with the leadership of a military campaign. The objective of this operation was to suppress the influence of the Franks, who were allies of the usurper Carausius. These Germanic tribes, occupying key positions at the mouths of the Rhine, posed a significant obstacle to any attempts at a naval invasion against Carausius, as their control over the waterways effectively blocked potential Roman sea attacks. Constantius Chlorus, demonstrating resolve, undertook a swift march northward, penetrating deep into Frankish territory. His advance was accompanied by significant devastation until the Roman legions reached the shores of the North Sea. Faced with such power, the Frankish chieftains were forced to sue for peace. As a result of the subsequent agreement, Maximian demonstrated foresight by restoring the deposed Frankish king Genabod to his throne. Genabod, in turn, accepted the status of Maximian's vassal, and the lesser Frankish chieftains swore allegiance to Genabod. Thus, thanks to this agreement, Roman regional dominance in the area was firmly secured. The success of this campaign allowed Maximian to secure the necessary fleet, possibly by confiscating vessels from the defeated Franks or by building a sufficient number of new ships. After successfully resolving the Frankish problem, Maximian could fully concentrate his attention on Carausius. The year 289 was marked by Maximian's active preparations for a large-scale naval invasion of Britannia. His ultimate goal was the definitive crushing of Carausius and the restoration of Roman control over the island. However, despite meticulous preparation, this ambitious plan failed. It is speculated that the cause of the failure was the elements. Perhaps the entire fleet was destroyed or dispersed by a powerful storm, rendering the operation impossible. Following this obvious and very palpable catastrophic failure, Emperors Diocletian and Maximian deemed it necessary to hold a personal meeting. They convened in Mediolanum, where they held confidential discussions, deeply deliberating key issues of the current political situation and strategic aspects of warfare. It was during these secret talks, historians believe, that the revolutionary idea of expanding the imperial college to 4 emperors was first seriously considered, which subsequently led to the establishment of the Tetrarchy system. After the failed invasion of Britannia, a very fragile peace was established between Emperor Maximian and the usurper Carausius for several years. However, the situation in Britannia and on the northern coast of Gaul caused deep dissatisfaction for Maximian and Diocletian. Likely recalling Constantius's outstanding successes against the Franks in previous years, on March 1, 293, he was appointed Caesar under Maximian, and shortly thereafter Galerius received a similar appointment under Diocletian, leading to the expansion of the imperial college to 4 rulers. Constantius was immediately dispatched to campaign against Carausius, and by the end of that same year, all of Carausius's forces were completely expelled from northern Gaul. In the same year, Carausius was killed, and his own treasurer, Electus, took his place. Constantius continued his march along the coast, reaching the mouths of the Rhine and Scheldt, where he achieved a decisive victory over Carausius's Frankish allies, for which he was awarded the honorary title of Germanicus Maximus. Maximian, who was still in Italy after Constantius's appointment, was fully informed of the impending invasion plans, and in mid-296, he returned